Tony Blair has created a new aristocracy of weak lefties, not socialists, Blairites, that now run every single element of Britain. Goodbye democracy. Welcome to Blairism. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe, but most importantly, hit the bell notification icon. It's the best way to absolutely guarantee you get all of my videos as soon as they are released. Well, my old friend Harry Cole is political editor of The Sun, and he's published a story today which lists the extraordinary nepotism that now exists in the Labour Party. Hundreds of years ago, there were lords and there were ladies, there were dukes, there were barons, there were viscounts, counts, and all the rest of it. There weren't any counts, that's in France. And by the way, I'll tell you, if you watch the end of the video, what happened to the counts of England and why they don't exist. But anyway, those people were families that ruled every part of the country. Now, what happened in those days was effectively a feudal system. And what that meant was that the king owned all the land in the country, but he delegated. A duke might be for a region, Duke of Lancaster, Duke of York. Then you might have a viscount or an earl at a slightly lower level, down to lords, the barons, the squires, and all that sort of thing. But effectively, it was a system of government. Nowadays, we pretend that we live in a democracy, but how many of these officials that Tony Blair brought in are actually random members of the public? I've got to warn you, it's really very few. The reality is that whichever way you vote, there are some things too important for democracy, and those things are run by executive agencies. And those executive agencies, Ofcom, Ofwat, and indeed all of the quangos, don't have any real democratic input. And believe me, the people that get these jobs are all lefties. Now, first of all, before we start on the Harry Cole story, which I will read to you, what I want to say to you is it's not literally in the terms and conditions of every quango that they have to be left-wing. Obviously not. It doesn't say on publicappointments.org.uk that you have to be a socialist to get these jobs. But what it will say for things like regional healthcare bodies, what it will say for primary care trusts, what it will say to be the deputy director of whatever organisation, the Environment Agency, they'll say things like, applications particularly welcome from ethnic minorities. That means whites need not apply. Now, forget what else you think. It means whites need not apply. Positive about LGBTQ means straight people need not apply. Particularly interested in people from deprived backgrounds. That means that middle-class people need not apply. And basically what they're looking for is effectively working-class black people to come in. And that very often happens. But that is only to shine up the fact that there is an aristocracy that sits behind it. They are very, very connected with Blairism, very connected with Labour. The doors were opened to government. And if you think you live in democracy now, you're very much mistaken. Let's just go through Harry Cole's story, simply because he has the granular detail. I'm going to put a link in the description, simply because I work for News UK as well. And I think it's only fair that I promote the article, given that I'm reading from it. But he says, 7 members of the cabinet, including the Defence and Business Secretary, are related to either other ministers, a Labour-appointed special advisor, or a senior civil servant. The government has finally published all of the who's related to who in the new government. And there is an unprecedented 28 ministers who are related to each other. Think about that. There's there's probably not 100, there's about 70 or 80 government ministers. 28 are related to each other. An astonishing thought. Also, they are married to other politicians or are on the public purse. That figure was 11 under the Conservatives. Probably too high, by the way, but nonetheless. Rachel Reeves' husband is a Whitehall Mandarin, whereas Pat McFadden's wife was appointed as an aide to Keir Starmer. Rachel Reeves' sister, Ellie, now attends cabinet, while her husband, John Cryer, is a member of the House of Lords. This is unbelievable. Health Secretary Wes Streeting's partner is paid as a Labour spin doctor, while Georgina Gould's husband is an advisor to Liz Kendall. You'll remember Brian Gould was a senior minister, of shadow minister, under Neil Kinnock, and later, bizarrely, became a sheep farmer in New Zealand. But there we go. The daughter of Brian Gould is now a minister and is married to the pension. Sorry, he's now the daughter of Brian Gould, Georgina Gould. Her husband is an advisor to the pension secretary. By the way, I'm sorry I'm tripping over my words, but there's so many of these, it's absolutely extraordinary. Ms Gould is considered Labour royalty, apparently. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander's husband is a senior figure at the media regulator Ofcom. Notes the quangocracy there. And lower ranks are heaving with people. Treasury Minister Lord Livermore's partner is Seb Dance, who is the Deputy Mayor to Sadiq Khan. Seb's not a bad bloke, but why he's working for Sadiq Khan, I really don't know. Fellow peer Baroness Smith serves as Advocate General of Scotland and is the youngest daughter of former Labour leader John Smith. I mean, I could just keep going. Baroness Blake in the House of Lords. Her daughter Olivia is a Member of Parliament. Housing Minister Alex Norris, his wife Emma Foodie, was elected to Parliament for Labour in July. What's happening here? You know, in some respects, the world is binary. Somebody wins and somebody loses. When you bring in a democracy, you inevitably both empower the people, but you also empower people with vested interests who attempt to control what you think and what I think. And that is what has happened under Blairism. When Blair talked about a stakeholder democracy, what he meant was this, that whatever way you vote, it's the stakeholders that really matter. It's the trade unionists. I ran a campaign a few years ago against trade union pilgrims. And let me explain what trade union pilgrims are, named after nurse Jane Pilgrim. They are people who are paid by the taxpayer to represent their trade union. So you as a trade union member pay in to your public sector union, but the representation you get is not paid for by the union. It's paid for by the taxpayer. And these people do some work for people like Unison, but most of their work is to campaign for the Labour Party. I remember under Ken Livingstone, when I worked for the London Assembly, when he was Mayor of London, you know, there were 26 anti-racism charities based in one room on Kennington Road. They were trousering collectively hundreds of thousands a year. And what they would do was they would simply give a government grant, or in this case, a London government grant, to an organisation to do an anti-racism project, to run a survey or whatever. And that just gave their mates jobs. This is a real problem for Britain. So I'm going to ask you to do me an enormous favour. First of all, don't worry about the nepotism of all this. It will be corrected when we bring back genuine democracy. But think about how many executive agencies run this country. If you in the comment section can list as many executive agencies as you can, I will honestly love you for it, because that is how our country is run now. Understand that the political decisions being made for you are not being made by your local member of parliament, are not being made by your local councillor. They're being made by these agencies controlled by these Labour aristocrats, and that is what Tony Blair wants to bring in. Now, I told you, if you waited to the end of the video, I'll tell you why the word count doesn't exist in Britain. The word see you next Tuesday is incredibly old Anglo-Saxon. And when the French, the Normans, invaded, they brought in all of their titles, Duke, Marquess, all these, Baron, I think, as well. But they retained the English title of Earl, because the word count and the word sound very similar in Old English. Therefore, when the new French lords came in and they said, you are the see you next Tuesday of Lancaster, you're the see you next Tuesday of York, the Anglo-Saxons were very keen to use that title. So the French got wise and brought back the title Earl, which is why Earl is the only Anglo-Saxon title that still exists in Britain. And even the wife of an Earl is a Countess, because that doesn't sound similar to see you next Tuesday. Anyway, I will not see you next Tuesday. I will see you tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.